Welcome back to Cinema Flicks and Music Picks. I'm your host with the most, the beast with the least, David. Album of 2021, you'll remember if you watched the video, was M'de Motkar's Afrique Victime, which, by the way, Mr. Dave Kaufman, should you be watching, I've also now picked up the Japanese CD of, and not just because it gives you an opus strip with a nice lyric insert for English and Japanese, when Japanese isn't too hot, but also because it's got bonus tracks which aren't on anything else from Matador Records. Nothing says Japanese more than Matadors. But why did I bring up albums of 2021 when we're in 2023? 2? I don't know. I think it's 2022. Because the album that I've listened to over the last 5 days, I've given it about 4 or 5 listens, and it would definitely be in my top 3 of last year. So it's an early contender for album of the year for this year coming, or this year that we're in, I should say, but the end of year lists coming a long way down the road. I'm not one of these, let's do a halfway holiday reappraisal. And it is, why am I keeping you in suspense? Again, it's always in the title. It is the super duper duper deluxe edition of Elvis, Costello and the Imposters with The Boy Named If, which in this edition is 13 songs and 13 fables. Stories by Elvis Costello, illustrated by Eamon Singer, which is the pseudonym for a Mr. Declan McManus, which is a pseudonym for Mr. Elvis Costello. So Elvis does the illustrations. There's a reason he probably took a pseudonym on. Some of them are pretty crap. But the music is great. Tales from the last days of youth until that moment we are told to stop acting like a child, which for most of us is any time during the next 7 or 8 decades. So, cover art, The Boy Named If. You look at the hair and whatnot and you wonder, is that maybe a self-portrait for Elvis? But what makes it deluxe isn't just the fact that it's in a nice box. It's in a 10-inch box here. There's 6,000 of these. Fortunately now sold out, but there were 6,000 of these if you pre-ordered. It was only 40 odd quid. And they all come as a storybook signed by Mr. Costello himself. This book belongs to Elvis Costello. There's your number out of 6,000. And I think he's put that in for a legal reason. I think he can come in, if he doesn't like this review, he can say, look, it says it belongs to me, I'm taking it back. There's again 13 songs, 13 fables, so it's probably the best way to illustrate is to, actually I like that, that's groovy, but it gives you a fable, a story, some quite dark, some quite twisted, some very childish, some twists on childish tales, but then, let's see, without skipping too many pages, because the paper's really high quality here, so you can very easily skip a page and think you're not, but then on the next page you get the lyrics for same song. So you'll get a fable related to that song, but then you'll get more art by Eamon Singer, Elvis Costello, and then the lyrics. So to the next one, which is I believe the title track, yep, The Boy Named If. There's a story about the boy named If. Some more gorgeous artwork. Although this artwork's nice. That's lovely. Continuing the fable on. And then, once again, lyrics for the boy named F. So it's fable, lyric, fable, lyric, fable, lyric, fable, lyric. I don't want to go through the whole thing because this is a lovely treasure trove of where he is. You learn more from some of the fables than you do from some of the lyrics, I think. And don't get me wrong, the lyrics are fantastic on here, but the fables show that I want a book of short story. I want a Elvis Costello Twilight Zone. That's what I want, an anthology series. But so, you know, his artwork as well kind of says where he is in his head at points. You know, I mean, there's not much. You know, it's like Elvis is the scream, and again, that says self-portrait to me. Despite the fact he takes on different characters throughout this, including for the third or fourth album in a row, he sings from a female point of view. But here's some, different stuff. Here's, I'm guessing New York, which is mistook me for a friend. I died in a war for this. Just reading random bits from the short story, but mistook me for a friend. That's that I don't remember it feeling particularly New York, but now I'm kind of looking at it and going, yeah, maybe. I think you kind of need to. You almost need to sit down with the book, and it's one of those old things where you need to pull the lyric sheet out from the vinyl and read along with the album. I've made a few notes on the songs, and I don't normally work from notes because I think it sounds false, but at the same time I want to give some brief, here's what it reminded me of. So first of all, overall, we'll do the overall after all. Track 1, Farewell OK. This is old school. Now, I don't mean it sounds old school Elvis. I mean it sounds old school like Little Richard, pushing on to the 60s. So think garage rock, think Question Mark and the Mysterians 96 Tears, that kind of thing. Or something from the Nuggets compilations. It sounds like that kind of sound. It's heavy, it's rough and ready. It's really old school. It's fantastically fun. It's a great way to kick off the album, sounding more rockabilly than anything else, but in a garage rock way. The Boy Named F, which we saw some work from there. Very heavy verses, very fuzzed out guitars, and it's got a very spooky feel to the whole track, which it's quite disorienting because the choruses are very uplifting with this lovely piano melody, which has I think the line is something like "Take my hand to magic lantern land." I mean, it sounds twee when you say that out loud, but contrasting it with the darkness and the creepiness of a lot of the organ work gives it a lovely kind of twisted kind of sense. And there's some stereo reverb at the end which goes from left to right, so again disorients you quite. When I had it with headphones on, I thought, whoa, I might have been on something at the time, which really aided that. Penelope Halfpenny. I've seen a few reviews say Penelope Halfpenny. No, he even sings halfpenny. The word is halfpenny. It's a halfpenny. That's a very old school song, and this time I do mean old school as in old school Costello. It sounds like something that could have come off of Armed Forces, this year's model. It's got a very I was going to say not the Imposters vibe, but I guess the Imposters are just an altered Attractions with a couple of differences. So it's something like the Attractions would have done back in the day. It's got a kind of radio feel, or pump it up, or high fidelity. You know, it's got that kind of feel to it where it could have come off any one of those kind of classic era albums before they became the King of America. But I thought they were a Republic. The Difference. That's a dark one. It's a murder ballad, which goes into incest potentially, and certainly a sexual assault, and maybe rapes involved. But again, there's a jaunty piano undercut in it, and that's what keeps going through my mind in this whole album is that Elvis is exploring some of the darkest themes he's touched on, but he's doing it in a fun way to disarm you. It's almost like he's challenging the people who aren't listening to the lyrics as well as the music, and he's also playing around with the notion of being able to have the light and the dark contrast in the same track, like say Randy Newman has done. You know, Forever and a Day, pretty much Randy Newman. What If I Can't Give You Anything But Love has got one of the most beautiful choruses and bass lines, really great fuzzy guitar. It's how you do a quiet song that's still fuzzed out, and it's indie rock, but it's not modern indie rock. It is the sound of a 67-year-old man's indie rock, but it does not sound like a 67-year-old man. It's fantastic. Paint the Red Rose Blue, which we saw the picture of the roses, didn't we? We saw red and blue roses. Well, it's been a good year for the roses, because this is a gorgeous song, absolutely gorgeous. Very quiet song, very quiet. And it sounds like a Donovan song, La Leña, Can't Blame Ya, which Deep Purple covered on the third album, just before Ian Gillan joined. You know, the la-di-da, la-di-da. So there's a bit on La Leña, it sounds exactly like that at points, which is always a good thing in my book. When I'm saying that this sounds like, I do not mean it's copying, it's derivative of, I just mean it's got an echo of, you know, it's from the same school. It grew up in the same neighbourhood, you know. Although I grew up in the same neighbourhood as Donovan, not Elvis Costello. Mistook Me for a Friend, fast-paced rocker. It sounds like something that he would have been involved with back in the days where his buddies were all on Stiff Records. You know, he might have produced one of them. Maybe a Nick Lowe track or something, Brinsley Schwartz, or a Reckless Eric kind of song. It repeats itself a lot, and there's some 80s synth in there. Intentionally dated synth sounds, which is pretty cool. And Elvis almost kind of raps on top of it. I mean, he's spitting out machine gun lyrics. And I don't mean the rap in an old guy rap, you know, my name's Elvis and I'm here to say, none of that. But he's just kind of, it sounds like stream of consciousness, but as we know, it rates to within an inch of his life. It doesn't rate stream of consciousness. And My Most Beautiful Mistake, I had a little bit of a problem with this because it kind of sounds like we need an Allison if we're trying to do a classic Elvis sounding album. And it kind of sounds like an Allison, which, you know, if you're looking for a track to get played on radio too, you might as well come up with a new Allison, I suppose. Because, you know, he was on the radio recently, old Elvis, or was it the telly? I can't remember. And he was complaining that, you always know an album's going to be good when Elvis is moaning and bitching in the press, because angry Elvis usually makes the best stuff. But he was complaining that all of his army should just be removed from playlists because they're censoring the N-word in it, because, you know, it's the N-word, even though it's used against white people in the song, because that was a term used at the time, was you're a white N-word, to describe, you know, poor people. But Elvis was complaining that, well, they take that off, I mean, the only songs I'm going to be remembered for are the ones I didn't write, She and Good Year for the Roses. I can kind of see his point there, But then I thought, well, you know, I just rhymed off a few a minute ago that were big hits, you know, High Fidelity and Radio, Turn It Up. Those are all great songs that get played all the time. You think, you're Elvis Costello, man, you don't need to worry about your legacy. I mean, you know, apart from, I don't know, Paul McCartney, who's really got that many songs that, you know, that 23-year-old girl over there could name? Bob Dylan doesn't. You know, she could probably do maybe Blowing in the Wind and Like a Rolling Stone, maybe. But, you know, apart from the Beatles, who's got that many songs that a modern generation's gonna, you know, get a picture is only going to start with one line, Elvis. You can't have it all. And your albums, you've done enough albums to last. You don't need to worry about your legacy. It's going to be fine. I'll look after it. Wildies. Magnificent Hurt. Very mid-tempo. We've had a lot of highs and lows tempo-wise, so this one kind of, and it's got a nice John Hyatt feel to it. You know, that kind of my favourite John Hyatt album, which is nobody's favourite, but it is mine, is Beneath This Gruff Exterior, and it's just got a feel from that. You know, it's nice. It's good, solid pace. It's a middle-aged man's song, which is terribly damning with terribly damp praise. But again, it's got some fantastic lyrics. The Death of Magic Thinking. Well, we're going back to, you know, some spooky stuff because you're going into magic and things. But over, you know, I mentioned that we had a track that was going back to rockabilly. Well, this kind of starts with the Bo Diddley drums. Hey, Bo Diddley. You know, or, you know, Buddy Holly, if you want to pretend that he invented these kind of things and didn't steal from Bo Diddley. I shouldn't diss Buddy Holly, it wasn't his fault that people get him mixed up. The white guys invented rock and roll. But The Death of Magic Thinking, great drums, great guitar, the vocals, the production, oh god, it soars at points. And what I love about this album is that a few Elvis albums this century, even with the Imposters, like The Delivery Man, for example, have sounded loud when you turn them up, but they haven't sounded terribly well produced. You know, when you turn them up, you know, it just makes everything louder, but it doesn't fill the room. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't feel like you're doing anything particular and hearing the production quality coming out. This very much does. Trick out the truth, so trick or treat, because we're going more, I mean, in this more horror. There's witches, there's jack-o'-lanterns reference, so I wasn't out when I said that he is going for something spooky on this album. When I heard it the first time, I thought of that, and then he literally starts singing about witches and jack-o'-lanterns, and I thought, thank you, Elvis. I'm picking up more than I thought, but the sound here starts to go very Tom Waits. If you think of Tom Waits songs like In the Neighbourhood, where it's got a kind of carnival atmosphere, twisted carnival, sounds very like the soundtrack to Something Wicked This Way Come should have, or something. You know, it's got that twisted carnival. It's the only way I can describe it, really. So think Tom Waits 80s albums, you know, like Rain Dogs and Swordfish Trombones, and you won't go far wrong with the kind of thing he's coming up with here. There's lots of Hollywood references in it as well, including to Myrna Loy, which I really enjoyed hearing because I've, you know, been collecting the Thin Man movies recently. And who else but me and Elvis this year are on here referencing Myrna Loy. So yeah, we'll have a wee look at the lyrics in a second, because we've got, well, we can get a few minutes. And then we close out with Mr. Crescent, which is a lovely classic acoustic ballad, kind of melancholy and bittersweet. There's a lot of, although I haven't, you know, I've concentrated on the spooky stuff in this album because that's what's kind of new to his oeuvre. Oh, I went a bit wanky that it is, but it also still very much embraces the good old themes that Elvis has explored of relationships gone bad and bitter and sour, and he doesn't need them anyway, but he doesn't want to live without them, and so it does go old school in lyrics as well. It's not all I don't want you to think that this is Elvis's Halloween album all of a sudden. It still explores themes of men, women, beasts, not at the same time. That would be, I just meant through the horror. It's produced by Sebastian Kreis, so I can only imagine is John Kreis from Karate Kids and Cobra Kai's son, who also produced Look Now, the last album with the Imposters, which wasn't as good as this. And Hey Clockface from last year was nowhere near as good as this. So Elvis has been not in a slump, but he's had a few albums in a row, including the Spanish Model from last year, where things were recreated to a Spanish version of his album. Whereas to me, this is, and I'm not an Elvis expert like someone I want to dedicate this video to, Holly Hughes. Where are you? There she is. Found her. Hello, Holly. I'm not an Elvis expert, so things, I've heard them all, but things like the Juliet Letters or North, over my head. It's a quote, Ray David, over my head, everything that he said. But it's the most Costello sounding like record since maybe Brutal Force, something like that. Yeah, that's the end. That's the end of the notes. Good evening. But yeah, just it's classic Elvis sound, but lyrically and musically exploring some different places. So yeah, looking at the lyrics, this might be the final word, a chance in the very last dance. The peal of the trumpet to a peril of red laughter, of lipstick and kisses right here under the rafter. A fumble for heaven and a thimble of draught. A seldom of Elvis in the velvet hereafter. So he's even put himself in the songs now. I'm not going to quote the full. Maybe I should do a dramatised reading of the short stories at some point. But The Boy Named If is quite a long one. We'll take my hand. We'll go to Magic Lantern Land. Take my hand, see the pictures we've projected. Again, that's the one that I said it's a really spooky song, but it sounds lyrically, if I just read that, like it should be happy-go-lucky, and it really isn't. It's really quite scary. Who'll pay your entrance fee? Who'll leave a tip? Who'll say, listen here, sunshine, don't you give me no lip? Who broke your favourite heart? Who stops and never starts? Who kissed you, stupid? Must be something you did. Who'll keep you satisfied after a lover's tiff? It must be some other guy, not the boy named F. He's just not lost at all, has he? He's still Penelope Halfpenny, which I'm tempted to, it almost reads like it could be done to the tune of Ellen Rugby. Penelope Halfpenny asked a great deal, turned on her heel through her squandered ambitions, while marking time, taught lessons too, adjacent to crime from her days, reporting to Scotland Yard. It actually does work to Ellen Rugby, that's amazing. I never realised that. Oops. Sorry Elvis if I've exposed some secrets there, but the difference, yeah, that's the incest one. So do you know what? I'm not even gonna quote from that and make a joke, because I don't know what you've been through, so it's not my place to. What if I can't give you anything but love? I'll tell you my secrets and you'll do the same. I'll lend you my name as an alias, excuse me. I'll take the moonlight falling in your face and the stars from up above. But what if I can't give you anything but love? So we opened up that door for you, the kind of thrill we'll never have. What if I can't give you anything but love? Okay, that bit doesn't rhyme so well, but still, you know. Paint the Red Rose Blue. Just love this song. Paint the Red Rose Blue to me is just instant classic. He was the youngest of 5 and the only son. He called his wife by a nickname as his father has done. Not the root, not the branch, not the flower nor stem. He had the wildest of dreams, but he rarely remembered them. Turn the red rose, paint the red rose blue. What was he to do but turn the red rose blue? Be still my beating heart, mistook me for a friend. You took me in the stairway of light, mistook me for a friend. A sign said, follow me into the night, mistook me for a friend. I had a pocket full of presents, a suitcase full of elements, the double cross of spectacles, a mogul for mechanos. Rainy streets were gleaming, or maybe I was dreaming. She thought that she heard wedding bells, 100,000 decibels. That crush in her confectioner said, yeah, yeah, yeah. Mistook you for a friend. She took my temperature, yeah, yeah, yeah. Mistook me for a friend. You took your clothes off after you sent him away. Why now, baby, would you ask him to stay? Again, he's saying that as a prostitute, you know. But Elvis is not ashamed to say, to take on the female part. He's not, one of these. I'm a guy, so I can't imagine ever singing from a woman's point of view. My most beautiful mistake. She was a part-time waitress with a dream of greatness that no one knew or even suspected, though it was sometimes reflected in the slant of a mirror. It was buried so deep and so dear. She caught the eye of a guy passing by who said, my, if I prove to be faithless, you'll surely know why. You'll probably know why. Then again you may say, Mister, you've got a nerve. Most of us never get what we deserve. I'll smell sweetly, I'm here at your service. Elvis. With these lyrics, you're spoiling us. Magnificent heart. After talking in tongues, I began to preach. What falls from their branch is an apple or peach. Hold on to me, there's a red alert. It's the way you make me feel, magnificent heart. Obviously he sings it to make alerts rhyme with hurt, but the Scots accent doesn't do that. So, the man you love to hate. I went to a theatre on Silhouette Street, had a taste of decay and a scent of defeat. All the patrons in the pews were people that I'd killed or used. The actors on the stage were equally skilled. The players took turns in lighting the fuse. One of them said, now you must choose a man of infamy or ill repute, and that's the one we'll execute. Death and magic thinking, solemn as a summer's day, even as a winter's evening. Angels strumming overhead, 27 seconds to touchdown. Switching on the landing lights, I turned up the radio. One day I'll buy a ticket for any place that I want to go. Trick out the truth. It's a sin to tell a lie until we trick out the truth. That depends on what you do and don't believe. What have you got hidden up your sleeve? Younger than your shadow and sweet as your tooth. What have you forbidden from my view? What have I kept from you? What have you kept from me? What will they say when they haul you away? Will anyone miss you or kiss you to say goodbye? With a tear or a coin for your eye when they finally trick out the truth? There are witches in the air, jack-o'-lanterns on the stair, and a wig to turn your hair electric blue. Ghouls have been sighted, childrens have been frightened, superheroes and villains, wondrous women by the millions, who fade through the parade to join the masquerade. Check out the truth. And then Mr. Crescent closes us out with Mr. Crescent. If you're like me, you want to sing to the tune of Mr. Pleasant, how is Mrs. Pleasant? Again, another Ray Davies reference. But Mr. Crescent heard the song of both the lark and the linnet, played them both upon a parlour spinet, one with only 9 strings in it, clinging to the sounding board, for that was all he could afford. Mr. Crescent made a wager on a landing stage. If my ship comes in and the starboard light is blue, not green, and the port light should be yellow, not red, you'll say the hold is full of false promises, but I know it should be gold instead. With another surely self-portrait to round us out. This is, and then just to show you there's actual music in here. There's the way the CD comes at the very back, and there are some nice photos of Elvis. So there's Elvis, or is it? So there's a fat Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and Harold Lloyd. Now, of course, it's Elvis with Laurel and Hardy. I don't think that's the real Laurel and Hardy. I've been cheated. And who are these imposters? So, and amazingly, for an album that sounds so ridiculously tight, so ridiculously classic, Attractions / Imposters, it was recorded in lockdown. So I'm in California at the Bonaparte Rooms, some in California at the Chateau Chotte, Elvis in France at Centuries. Sebastian Chris was doing all his work in Woodland Hills, LA. Nicole Atkins, who does some guest vocals, was recorded at 3 Siren Studio in Nashville. So, you know, rocking all over the world. But you would never know it, because it sounds not just coherent, but it sounds like I'm missing Elvis Costello, and I keep wanting to say Attractions because of the sound, but it sounds like I'm missing Elvis Costello on the Attractions album from the late 70s, early 80s. His voice still sounds great. The band are intentionally calling up some riffs and some parts and some motifs that sounds classic. So Imposters, no chance. These guys are the real deal. The band was shit hot as they've ever been. Elvis's lyrics are just breathtaking, as I hope you picked up, even with me butchering them. It's a shame the short stories are exclusive to this, because they're fantastic as well. Maybe at some point I will just read one at a time, stick them on here, because I think they do deserve a public hearing. And now that 6,000 have gone, it's not really fair that people can't hear them or read them even if they want to, because they're not in the normal CD or the vinyl. They're only in this storybook, as they call it, 10-inch. So yeah, I don't know who that is in the back. It looks a bit like Robert Smith, but also Prince at the same time. Yeah. Well then, that's really everything. Really everything. I said I was going to make this a shorter one. I think it's ended up being just about my longest video yet. But that's what happens when you enjoy music and you want to just gush. So apart from the fact that I got a new black and white slouch beanie, it's my bid to end racial intolerance. Ebony and ivory side by side on my slouch beanie. That's really everything I have to say about that. Except for the one person who keeps asking what this white box is here, because it doesn't say anything. It does if you get closer. There are symbols on here. It's Peter Gabriel's Soul, the box set Deluxe edition. So there you go. No exciting big story behind it. I'm going to do a box set series at some point where I can ram through older stuff, but why concentrate on older stuff when stuff like this is getting released right now? Yeah, there's no good music made anymore. Yes, there is. Look at this. Maybe by a 67-year-old, but I think I've proven that, you know, and there's Mutu, and the geese are over there. I need to let them out to their business. Richard Thompson's over there, and of course, taking the world by storm at the moment is the lead singer of a band, who's also had somewhat of a solo career, who I think we all know and love. talk about imposters. Who's this next guy that's been pretending to be Phil Collins for the last 36 years? Right, well, I'm away to do nothing really. It's nearly 11 o'clock at night, I've got nothing to do. I'm away to dream about you. So, until next time, let's be very careful out there. Love and mercy, my dears. Love and mercy.